Hello Mark, my name is Lydia and my student number is S04411056. The title of the speech is Feats of Memory Anyone Can Do by Joshua Foer. I'm the freshman at NCUE. I'd like to invite you to just close your eyes. Imagine yourself standing outside the front door of your room. I'd like you to notice the color of the door, the material that is made out of. Now visualize a pack of the overweight nudists on bicycles. Laughter. They're competing in the neck bicycle race, and they're headed straight for your front door. I need you to actually see this. They're pedaling really hard, they're sweaty, they're bouncing around a lot, and they crash straight into the front door of your room. Bicycles fly everywhere, wheels roll past you, spokes and end up in a awkward places. Step over the threshold of your door into your foyer, your hallway, whatever's on the other side, and appreciate the quality of the light. The light is shining down on Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster is waving at your from his perch on top of a tent horse. It's a talking horse. You can practically feel his blue fur tickling your nose. You can smell the oatmeal raisin cookie that he's about to shove into his mouth. Walk past him into your living room. In your living room, in full imaginative band, picture Britney Spears. She's scantily clad, she's dancing on your coffee table, and she's singing, "Hit me, baby, one more time." And then follow me into your kitchen. In your kitchen, the floor has been paved over with a yellow brick road, and out of your oven are coming towards your Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion, from the Wizard of Oz, hand in hand, skipping straight towards you. Okay, open your eyes. I want to tell you about a very bizarre contest that is held every spring in New York City. It's called the United States Memory Championship. And I had gone to cover this contest a few years back as a science journalist, expecting, I guess, that this was going to be like a Super Bowl of sevens. This was a bunch of guys and a few ladies widely varying in both age and hygienic upkeep. Laughter. They were memorizing hundreds of random numbers, looking at them just once. They were memorizing the names of dozens of strangers. They were memorizing entire poems in just a few minutes. They were competing to see who could memorize the order of a shuffle pack of playing cards the fastest. It was like, this is unbelievable. These people must be freaks of nature. And I started talking a few of the competitor. This is a guy called Ed Cook, who had come over from England, where he had one of the best trained memories. And I said to him, Ed, when did you realize that you were 7? And Ed was like, I'm not 7. In fact, I have just an average memory. Everybody can compete in this contest will tell you that they have just an average memory. We've all trained ourselves to perfect these utterly miraculous feats of memory using a set of ancient techniques invented 2,500 years ago in Greece, the same techniques that Caesar had used to memorize his speech, that medieval scholars had used to memorize entire books. And I said, wow, how come I never heard this before? And we were standing outside the competition hall, and Ed, who is a wonderful, brilliant, but somehow eccentric English guy, says to me, Josh, you are an American journeys. Do you know Britney Spears? I'm like, what? No, why? Because I really want to teach Britney Spears how to memorize the order of a shuffled pack of playing cards on U.S. national television. It will prove to the world that anybody can do this. Laughter. I was like, well, I'm not Britney Spears, but maybe you could teach me. I mean, you've got to start somewhere, right? And that was the beginning of a very strange journey for me. I ended up spending the better part of the ninth year not only training my memory, but also investigating it, trying to understand how it works, why it sometimes doesn't work, and what its potential might be. And I might meet a host of really interesting people. This is a guy called EP. He's an amnestic who had very possibly the worst memory in the world. His memory was so bad that he didn't even remember he had a memory problem, which is amazing. And he was this incredibly tragic figure, but he was a window into the extent to which our memories makes up who we are. At the other end of spectrum, I met this guy. This is Kim Prick. He was the basis for Dustin Hoffman's characters in the movie Remnant. We spent an afternoon together in the Salt Lake City Public Library memorizing phone books, which is scintillating laughter. What I went back and I read a whole host of memory treatises written 200 plus years ago in Latin, in antiquity, and then later in the Middle Ages, and I learned a whole bunch of really interesting stuff. One of the really interesting things that I learned is that once upon a time, this idea of having a trained, disciplined, cultivated memory was not nearly so alien as it would seem to us to be today. Once upon a time, people invested in their memories, in laboriously furnishing in their minds. Over the last few millennia, we've invited a series of technologies from the alphabet to the score to the coders, the printing press, photography, the computer, the smartphone that have made it progressively easier and easier for us to externalize our memories, for us to essentially outsource this fundamental human capacity. These technologies have made our modern world possible, but they've also changed. They've changed us culturally, and I would argue that they've changed us cognitively. Have little need to remember anymore. It sometimes seems that we've forgotten how. One of the last places on earth where you still find people passionate about this idea of a trained discipline, cultivated memory, is that this totally singular memory context is actually not that singular. There are contests held all over the world, and I was fascinated. I wanted to know how do these guys do it. A few years back, a group of researchers at University College London brought a bunch of memory champions into the lab. They wanted to know, do these guys have brains that are somehow structurally, anatomically different from the rest of ours? The answer was no. And they're smarter than the rest of us. They gave a bunch of cognitive tests, and the answer was not really. There was, however, one really interesting and telling difference between the brains of the memory champions and the control subjects that they were comparing them to. When they put these guys in a fMRI machine, scanned their brains while they were memorizing numbers and people's faces and pictures of snowflakes, they found that The memory champions were lighting up different parts of a brand than everyone else. Of note, they were using, or they seemed to be using, a part of a brand that's involved in spatial memory and navigation. Why? And is there something that the rest of us can learn from this? The sport of competitive memorizing is driven by a kind of arms race where every year somebody comes up with a new way to remember more stuff more quickly, and the rest of the field has to play catch up. This my friend Pam Pradmore, 3 times world memory champion, and his decks in front of him are 36 shuffled packs of playing cards that he is about to try to memorize in 1 hour using a techniques that he invented and he alone has mastered. He used a similar technique to memorize the precise order of 4,150 random binary digits in half an hour. Laughter, yeah. And while there are a whole host of ways to remembering stuff in this competition, everything, all of the techniques that are being used ultimately come down a concept that psychologists refer to as elaborative encoding, and it's well illustrated by a nifty paradox known as the Becker paradox, which goes like this. If I tell 2 people to remember the same word, if I say to you, remember that this is a guy named Becker, that's his name, and I say to you, remember that there is a guy who is a baker, okay? And I come back to you at some point later on, and I say, do you remember that word that I told you a while back? Do you remember what it was? The person who was told his name is Becker is less likely to remember the same word than the person was told his job is a baker. Same word, different amounts of remembering. That's a weird. What's going on here? Well, the name Becker doesn't actually mean anything to you. It's entirely authorized from all of the other memories floating around in your skull. But the common noun baker, we know bakers. Bakers wear funny white hats. Bakers have flour on their hands. Bakers smell good when they come home from work. Maybe we even know a baker, and when we first hear that word, we start putting this associational hooks into it that make it easier to fish it back out at the same later day. The entire art of what is going on in this memory contest and the entire art of remembering stuff better in everyday life is figuring out ways to transform capital B bakers into lowercase b bakers, to take information that is lacking in context, in significance, in meaning, and transform it in some way so that it becomes meaningful in the light of all the other things that you have in your mind. One of the more elaborate techniques for doing this dates back 2,500 years to ancient Greece. It came to be known as the memory palace. The story behind its creation goes like this. There was a poet called Simonides who was attending a banquet. He was actually the higher entertainment because back then, if you wanted to throw a really slamming party, you didn't hire a DJ. You hired a poet, and he stand up, delivers his poem from memory, walks out the door, and at the moment he does, the banquet hall collapses, kills everybody inside. It doesn't just kill everybody, it mangles the bodies beyond all recognition. Nobody can say who was inside. Nobody can say where they were sitting. No, the bodies can properly buried. This one tragedy compounding another. Simmons standing outside the survivor at the Regis closes his eyes and has this realization, which is that in his mind's eye, he can see where each of the guests at the banquet had been sitting, and he takes the relatives by the hand and guides them each to their loved ones amidst the wreckage. What Smith figured out at that moment is something that I think we all kinds of intuitively knew. What is that, and as bad as we are at remembering names and phone numbers and word-for-word instructions from our colleagues, we have really exceptional visual and special memories. If I ask you to recount the first 10 words of the story that I just told you about Simmons, chances are you would have a tough time with it. But I would wager that if I ask you to recall who is sitting on top of the talking 10 horse in your foyer right now, you would be able to see that the idea behind the memory palace is to create this image at first in your mind's eye and populate it with image of the things that you want to remember. The crazier, weirder, more bizarre, funnier, raunchier, stinkier the image is, the more unforgettable it's likely to be. This is at the voice that goes back 2,000 plus years to the earliest Lottie memory treatises. So how does this work? Let's say that you've been invited to tech center stage to give a speech, and you want to do it from memory, and you want to do it the way that Cicero would have done it if he had been invited to text stand room 2,000 years ago. Laughter. What you might do is picture yourself at the front door of your house, and you'd come up with some sort of crazy, ridiculous, unforgettable image to remind you that the first thing you want to talk about is this totally bizarre contest laughter. And then you go inside your house and you will see an image of Cookie Monster on top of Monster, and that would remind you that you would want to then introduce your friend Ed Could. And then you see an image of Britney Spears to remind you of this funny anecdote you want to tell. And you go into your kitchen, and first topic you were going to talk about was this strange journey that you went on for a year. And you'd have some friends to help you remember that. This is how Roman orators memorize their speeches, not word for word, which is just going to screw you up, but topic for topic. In fact, the first topic sentence that comes from the Greek word topos, which means place. That's a vestige of when people used to think about oratory and rhetoric in these sorts of special terms. The phrase "in the first place," that's like in the first place of your memory palace. I thought this was just fascinating, and I got really into it. And I went to a few more of these memory contests, and I had this notion that I might write something longer about this subculture of competitive memorizers. But there was a problem. The problem was that the memory contest is a pathologically boring event. Laughter. Truly, it's like a bunch of people sitting around lacking the aesthetics. I mean, the most dramatic it gets is when somebody starts messaging their temples, and I'm journalist. I need something to write about. I know that there's incredible stuff happening in these people's minds, but I don't have access to it. And I realized if I was going to tell this story, I needed to work in their shoes a little bit. And so I started trying to spend 15 or 20 minutes every morning before I sat down with my New York Times, just trying to remember something. Maybe it was a poem, maybe it was name from an old yearbook that I had bought at a flea market, and I found that this was shockingly fun. I never would have expected that it was fun, because this is actually not about training your memory. What you are doing is you're trying to get better and better at creating, at dreaming up this utterly ludicrous, raunchy, hilarious, and hopefully unforgettable image in your mind's eye, and I got pretty into it. This is me wearing my standards competitive memorizers training kick. Laughter. It's a pair of earmuffs and a set of safety goggles that have been maxed over except for two small pinholes, because distraction is a competitive memorizer's greatest enemy. I ended up coming back to the same contest that I had covered a year earlier, and I had this notion that I might enter it sort of as an experiment in participatory journalism. I thought, maybe a nice epilogue to all my research. Problem was the experiment went haywire. I won the contest, laughter, which really wasn't supposed to happen, applause. Now, it's nice to be able to memorize speeches and phone numbers and shopping lists, but it's actually kind of beside the point. They are just tricks. They work because they are based on some pretty basic principles about how our brains work, and you don't have to be building memory palaces or memorizing packs or playing cards to benefit from a little bit of insight about how your mind works. We often talk about people with great memories as if though they were some sort of an innate gift. But that is not cast great memories and learned. And at the same most basic level, we remember when we pay attention. We remember when we are deeply engaged. Deeply engaged. We remember we remember when we remember when we are deeply engaged. We remember when we are able to take a piece of information and experience and figure out what is meaningful to us, what is significant, what is colorful, when we are able to transform it in some way that makes sense in the light of all of the other things floating around in our minds, when we are able to transform bakers into bakers. The memory palace. These memory techniques that they are just shortcuts. In fact, they are even really shortcuts. They work because they make you work. The first kind of depth of processing is a kind of mindfulness. The most of us don't normally work around exercising, but there actually are not shortcuts. This is how stuff is memorable. And I think there's one thing that I want to leave you with is what it the amnestic who who couldn't even remember he had a memory problem left me with what is the notion that our lives are the sum of our memories. How much are we willing to lose from our already short lives by losing ourselves in our Blackberries, our iPhones, but not paying attention to the human being across from us who is talking with us. By being so lazy that we are not willing to process deeply, I've learned firsthand that there are incredible memory capacities latent in all of us. But if you want to live memorable life, you have to be the kind of person who remembers to remember. Thank you. Applause.